6, a helping hand with your land.
Neil from Essex here. It's hot outside today, so today's 3-Minute Thursday is going to be an inside one. I'm going to take a couple minutes here and maybe teach you a couple of things about hydraulic hoses and couplers. Hydraulic hoses are found all over tractors and equipment, whether it's on your loaders or your attachments. There's a lot of different places you're going to have hydraulic hoses. And hydraulic hoses, particularly as machines age, tend to be a maintenance item, right? They're easy things. They get caught on something and tear, or because they're rubber, they do tend to dry rot over time and sometimes need to leak and be replaced. Most of the time for hoses, we're usually going to stock a lot of ones directly from the manufacturer with the proper hose and the proper fittings for your machines and attachments. But we do also keep a huge selection of different hoses and coupler options on hand so that we can make things in a pinch. So if we're getting into, say, a different piece of equipment that's not something that we work on every day and we need a hose for some reason, we can make our own. When it comes to hydraulic hose, there's only a handful of things that you can really learn. Hoses are available in different sizes. This one here is 3/4. We'd have even some small 1/4-inch grease line up in here, up into big high capacity hoses. So beyond that diameter of the hose itself, there's also a pressure rating. Now, the way that's usually explained is called the wire of the hose, whether it's a 1-wire or 2-wire hose. Calling it a wire almost sounds like there's a single filament wrapped around this thing, and that's not actually the case. There's a big braided layer of wire that actually encapsulates the entire hose and gives it its rigidity and its ability to hold pressure. A 2-wire hose like this one right here is going to have 2 complete mesh layers with an additional layer of rubber in the middle of it in order to give it a really high pressure capacity. So if you need higher pressure hoses, you want to buy 2-wire hoses. If you can do a little bit lower pressure, say on loaders and that kind of thing, a 1-wire hose will do you just fine. When you walk up to the parts counter, one of the first things the guys are going to ask you is whether you have pipe threaded or JIC fittings. If you look at a JIC fittings have a bevel here on the end of the fitting. That helps it mate a little bit better on the side of the female end. Pipe threaded fittings don't have that bevel on them. And you'll notice that too on the female side. If you look at the female end of this, you can see on the inside of there that angled surface where this is supposed to mate to. The pipe thread fittings won't mate properly into a JIC, so you do want to pay attention. This is not something you can mix and match. Even though the cutting of the threads here is basically the same, those mating surfaces are different, and it's important that you get them right. Because of the added machining, JIC fittings are a little bit more expensive, and you'll notice that the female variations usually do have swivels on them, which is nice. Most of our pipe thread fittings in here don't have swivels, and usually if you want a swivel, you have to put on an additional fitting in order to get that. So if you're starting from scratch and you don't have existing fittings to work with, using JICs is usually probably preferred, but pipe is also really universal. You'll find this on a lot of stuff. So while pipe and JIC are your 2 fitting types that are usually going to screw, say, like straight into a cylinder, there's 2 main types of couplers that are used when attaching into the back of a tractor or, say, unhooking from an implement. The more common one is called a pioneer coupler. If you look at the end of this, you'll see it's an open coupler, a big hole in it, an O-ring sat on the inside, and a pin on the bottom of it. That pin on the inside of the pioneer coupler is what actually opens this thing up and allows it to flow oil. The newer type of coupler that we're starting to see more and more of now is called a flat face. A flat face coupler, when it's closed off, is completely flat. That helps keep it clean. It doesn't need to be covered as quickly with dust caps as what Pioneer couplers do. And the flat faces are also a little bit easier to release under pressure. A lot of our newer construction equipment has manifolds and stuff that when you push one of these in, it automatically dumps excess pressure out of the lines, making these worlds easier to work with than what Pioneer couplers are. Of course, everything comes with a cost. These more complicated flat face are a little bit more expensive. But if you are buying couplers for, say, a third function kit, or you're getting into these things for the first time, you don't have existing systems to work with, my opinion is flat faces are well worth a little bit of added expense. There are 34 drawers here of different fittings. So we can get into some really unique things like funny bends or pieces that have, say, O-rings on the bases. Really large fittings with small outlets. This is part of the reason why I say we prefer to use OEM hoses when possible, because you can get hoses in a lot of really tight areas or with a funny fitting that are really challenging in order to match up exactly the right parts for your application. Another place that you want to watch too is where that hose is being used. Loaders and implements and that kind of stuff, no big deal in order to get hoses made. But if you have a hose coming off of, say, a hydraulic pump or something, you can have some really, really high pressure hoses where the normal hose stock that we keep here on the shelf isn't going to be the right pressure for those applications. So do pay attention not just to the hose and the fittings, but also think through a little bit of where that piece is being used. If you find yourself repetitively having to replace a hose, one way that you can prevent that is by the use of this abrasion sleeve. These heavy cloth sleeves are made to have the hoses slid inside of them, so if they're rubbing against surfaces, it doesn't eventually rub through the rubber material on the hose. So good hydraulic shops are going to have this kind of stuff around, kind of giving you that protective barrier, so hopefully you're not having to replace these things at the most inconvenient times. So that's a short primer on hydraulic hoses. Not really a whole lot to know other than watch your pressures and make sure you know what kinds of fittings that you need if you're getting one made. So if you have any parts needs for your equipment, machines you're shopping for, or things that you could have worked on, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messick's.com.